Hello and welcome back to RamsTalkPodcast. And we're here today to preview the game against Queen's Park Rangers. Now, Queen's Park Rangers, QPR. We've got some horrible memories against them. So joining me today to preview a game that's hopefully not as horrible for Derby fans and won't stick in our minds forever is Connor or Hoopsa from YouTube. How are you, pal?
Very good, thank you, Jake. How are you, mate?
I'm very good too, thank you. I'm very much looking forward to it. I mean, we're recording this on the Monday. Both teams obviously play on the Tuesday, so that might have a slight change in what could be spoken about. But I'm still really upset about Derby losing to Norwich. Hopefully, I'm here celebrating, and everyone's listening to this celebrating as Derby have beaten Sunderland. So let's hope that's the case. But Connor, I just want to go to you first and ask you a few questions about QPR as a club because obviously we've been apart for a couple of years now. You've been enjoying yourselves in the Championship. We've been slumming it down in League One. Give us a little bit of an overview on QPR as a club and how the last few seasons have gone.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say we've been enjoying ourselves in the Championship per se. It's been a difficult couple of seasons. The last two in particular have been relegation battles, to be honest. Ever since we sort of parted ways with Mark Warburton, who sort of gave us stability in his few seasons in charge before that. It's been a bit of a slippery slope, to be honest. Things started well with Michael Beale coming in as manager. But obviously we had the break going into the World Cup, at which point he decided he'd much rather be managing Rangers instead in Scotland after about 3 months at the club. So he parted ways. We then went through two managerial changes. We had Gareth Ainsworth at the start of last season. We're really struggling up to sort of end of October, November time. Really looked doomed to be joining you in League One at the time, to be honest. But we did manage to uncover Marty Cifuentes as Gareth Ainsworth's successor. He completely turned things around for QPR last season, and he's got a lot of fans feeling a bit more hopeful for the future.
Well, that's good at least. Yeah, I remember when Ainsworth came in, that video went round of was someone doing the hacker, or was he making all the players do the hacker? What was that about?
Yeah, he brought someone in to do the hacker, which is, I think, straight out of the Gareth Ainsworth playbook of motivation. And you only have to look at pretty much everyone's face in that video except for Ainsworth and the guy doing the hacker to see how well that one went down. I mean, there's one thing getting them in to do it, but it's another thing deciding to post it all over social media.
Yeah, it was a good watch though. I definitely enjoyed it. I mean, you talk about hope, Connor. Talk me through the season so far. It seems like you've had a pretty up and down start to the season. How's it gone?
Yeah, it's an interesting one so far. It's only one win in 7, but it's 2 losses in 7 as well in the league. And that's currently to top of the league, West Brom, and third place, Blackburn. Obviously, don't want to use that too significantly as an excuse, but it feels at the moment like we're trying to bed in some of these new players we signed over the summer. 9 players, average age of 21 years old. There's some real promise there, but we've not really picked up in the way that we might have hoped since the end of last season. So since January, when we sort of did that, great escape from the clutches of relegation, we were one of the best form teams in the league. We ended with a couple of really good results, like the Leeds home win 4-0, which we thought was going to be some glimmers of things to come next season. But it's taken a while for these players to bed in, and we're sort of struggling to put together 2 halves of pretty decent football at the moment. Our defence was a key part of that sort of battle in the second half of last season. That's been a bit rockier than we might have liked. Have been some glints of kind of attacking promise. Mickey Frey's a player that's really informed for us. It's nice to see him starting to hit a few in. And Karamoko Dembele came straight in, right winger. He's picked up 3 assists already in those 7 games. So despite the fact that the results aren't quite coming yet, there are a few signs of promise. But we do need to start picking up a couple of wins to make sure that we're not sort of totally panicking in the approach this winter.
You and us both, mate. I think we're in a very similar situation. Yeah, the team's just got a bed together, haven't they? But I mean, let's look at your last game. Says here 2-0 defeat to Blackburn. It was a bit of a strange one. You picked up a red card. What happened?
Yeah, it's the second of two completely needless red cards this season after Jack Colback got himself sent off at Sheffield United. Yeah, in the depths of first half added time, Jonathan Varane, one of the only times, so he's centre midfielder, one of the few times in that half that he actually tried to take the ball forward, took it around a couple of players. The ball slightly bobbled away from him. He's tried to recover it and then just completely wiped a Blackburn player out. And I don't know. There was a lot of debate about whether like a straight red was a bit harsh, but he sort of trapped his ankle with both legs. The Blackburn players really, really sold it well. And I do think that, yeah, if it happened the other way around at Loftus Road to a QPR player, we would have been asking for a red ourselves. So, yeah, that's all I'll say on that.
Yeah, that is fair enough. I mean, how confident are you feeling coming up against Derby? Obviously, we are recording this on the Monday, and there's another game to come. And if you win 6-0 and we lose 6-0, it might change your opinion a little bit. But how are you sort of feeling? Obviously, Derby, newly promoted team, QPR. I know you say you've been in a relegation battle, but you've spent a decent amount of money. Obviously, Dembele was a player that Derby were linked with. I don't think we were ever in for him, but he was a player we were linked with. You made a couple of good signings. How are you feeling?
Do you know what? It's impossible to say because QPR sort of traditionally, particularly over the last couple of seasons, this is exactly the kind of banana skin that we would trip up on, is going to a newly promoted team, feeling confident, and then not getting a result. In previous seasons as well, we would typically play better against teams higher up the table. We've done that already this season a little bit with a point away at Sheffield United, where we won away at Luton Town. Um, but yeah, yourselves and I'd say, Oxford United, they're clubs that aren't looking, you don't look overwhelmed by the sort of occasion of coming back up. It doesn't look like you're a newly promoted team that's in out of their depth. So I'm really expecting quite a tight match. And yeah, I don't feel optimistic of a win at the moment, purely because we've only won 1 in 7. And I'm not yet seeing the signs that we're going to start to sort of dictate play and take control of games. So yeah, I think it's going to be a tough trip.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I mean, I was looking at the stats before we recorded this, and both teams are right down at the bottom for possession, for passes completed, and I think the weirdest one is interceptions. Derby are top, and QPR are bottom, which seems a little bit strange. But one thing I did notice is that QPR take their chances. You're right down the bottom for chances, or big chances missed as well, which means every time you get a big chance, you tend to take it. You mentioned Frey up top. Is he the main man?
Has been this season so far. It's an interesting one. He came in January. He looked pretty unfit, to be honest. You could see some potential there, but the more games went on, he just looked like a bit of a lump. But he's worked really hard over the summer. There's talks that he didn't take any holiday. He's been in the gym the whole time, and you can kind of see it. To be honest, he's looking a lot quicker, a lot sharper. He's hustling. The main issue at the moment is just, can we create enough chances for him? Because there are some games that will really suit him. He's happy to battle for balls over the top, but we're not that sort of creative at the moment behind him. And so I do worry that it will be quite easy to nullify him against certain opposition. But he's got a few goals already. It's been a while really since we've had a striker in that kind of form, which is kind of worrying, but it's very nice to see that he started well. So yeah, get him those sort of half chances and he'll take them. But like I say, it's more linking up between the sort of centre midfield and him at the moment is where we're sort of having a few issues.
I mean, you mentioned Frey, you mentioned Dembele as well. Are there any other players that could cause Derby any problems?
Well, in my preview that we've just recorded, you mentioned Derby's goalkeeper, so I'll mention QPR's goalkeeper, Paul Nardi, signed in the summer. He's really, really good. Despite losing 2-0 at the weekend, he made 10 saves, which was the most in the division. There was one strange moment 2 minutes after kind of half time where he saved 4 shots in about 10 seconds, multiple of which he probably didn't really have the right to. And yeah, he's just brought a kind of a level-headedness and an experience. He does occasionally frighten me with, he likes to, kind of progress up the pitch a little bit. And sometimes he's a bit further out from goal than I would like, but his shot stopping is really good. So I think if he's on song, he could give teams a really hard time.
Well, our goalkeeper against Norwich in the 98th minute was holding up the ball on the opposition's penalty area. So, yeah, if it's anything like that, I'm sure he'll do well. And sort of looking at your team as well. I mean, I've noticed you've got Jimmy Dunn at the back as well. I'm pretty sure he's a full international. You've got a few players of pedigree. Are there any other players that we should sort of be looking at that could make an impact in this game?
Koki Saito, he's a left winger that we've got on loan, a Japanese left winger. And he's looked dangerous in patches in the few games that he's played so far, but he's not got found the back of the net yet. But he looked really dangerous in that first half until the red card at the end of the half, and then we really didn't get to attack in that second half. I feel like he's going to come good pretty soon because he started to have a few really close efforts. He skinned a couple of defenders, so I think he is one that could pop up soon.
Yeah, that's definitely interesting. I mean, we've talked a lot about the strengths of this QPR team, the better players. Are there any sort of weaknesses that Derby could really look at and take advantage of?
For me, it's been the same story in pretty much every game so far, which is our centre of midfield. We're just not sort of dominating the midfield in really any of the games that we've played so far. It's a problem that goes back a couple of seasons, to be honest. We really struggle with having that centre midfielder that will stand in front of the defence, take the ball, turn, and progress up the pitch. And we kind of solved it last season when we got Isaac Hayden on loan from Newcastle in January, and he completely changed our season. And I think for me, he was the sort of critical player in keeping us up. We were in talks to sign him over the summer, but it apparently broke down pretty late into the window, which becomes even more frustrating given that he's still at Newcastle, but he's not in the squad now, so he's not ended up on loan anywhere. And he's a player we could really do with. So that's the area I'm most concerned about in most games at the minute, is that centre of midfield, because we've just not worked out how to play through it yet. And in defence as well, we defend fairly well for sort of 3/4 of a game, but we're not always good at blocking balls in kind of from the wing or from the edge of the box. And we've been caught out on that a couple of times this season. So if Derby are prepared to pump a few balls in, then he could catch us off guard.
Well, that is near enough all we do, so that
Oh,
that
good.
bodes well. That does bode well, and I guess just want to ask you, Connor, are there any Derby players or any players that you've seen in this Derby team that you're a little bit nervous about facing at the weekend?
You mentioned your goalkeeper, and he's quite a towering presence. And given we're not particularly sharp in front of goal at the moment, aside from Frey, I do think he could have a bit of a field day against us. And we're just really not testing keepers at the moment. But I said Paul Nardi had 10 saves to make against Blackburn in the 2-0 loss. Their goalkeeper had 1 by comparison in the full 90 minutes. So I'm going to go with your goalkeeper.
Cool. Great stuff. And right, Connor, before we finish it off, what's your prediction for Derby versus Queen's Park Rangers?
Well, you'll be pleased to know that I'm not going into many of these at the moment optimistic of a win, given our records so far. But we always have a pretty close and chaotic game. So I'll back us to get on the score sheet. I'm going to go with a 1-1 draw.
1-1 draw. And to be honest, I wait for 1-0 on yours, so I'll stick with it. I'll back it. I'll back Derby, back the team. And I think I'll go 1-0 Derby. But I think you're right. It's going to be a really close game. It's two teams that, are probably quite even. You haven't found the knack of winning games yet. And we have a knack of either winning or losing. We've barely drawn a game under Paul Warne. It's really bizarre. If you look at our stats, like pre and post, we tend to either lose by a goal or win by a goal. That's pretty much how it is. But I'm hoping, I'm thinking we're probably going to book that trend and end up with a 1-1 draw. So thank you so much for listening. If you did enjoy, please do leave a like. Please do subscribe. All that sort of stuff. We're running about 3,900 kilometers for Derby Food for Thought. So if you want to spare a few pounds to support us and support them feeding children in Derby, then please do. Connor, where can we find more from you, mate?
So Hoopsa YT on Twitter and Hoopsa on YouTube is where you can find me. So thanks for having me.
Great stuff. Thank you very much for coming on, and thank you everyone for listening. We'll see you.